I think it's safe to say that if you took away the bubble and the season had sort of ended and played out the way we all expected it to when the season started, I think the Lakers still win. I really think from start to finish, when the regular season ended, they were coming off some big wins against the Clippers and the Bucks in like back-to-back games one weekend. They were the best team in basketball. And when they were on defensively in this series, it looked like a total mismatch. And coming from two of the biggest and ardent Heat supporters in the NBA, I can say that. Like, it looked like a mismatch at times, and that their defense just absolutely swallowed them up. And you saw that come to fruition, I think, in Game 6 especially.
Yeah, I mean, to me, what the finals, really in both bubbles, but NBA especially, given the Heat's run, it just shows the role that fans play. To me, that's where fans make the game emotional. And when you don't have them, it's just that emotion just doesn't exist. The swings aren't as high as low. Like how many times, JJ, have you been in a game where the other team just went on a run and you could have sworn if you looked at the scoreboard, you were down 20 and you look up, you're like, oh, we're only down 5? Because the fans can make it feel like so to me, and we all know I'm a huge Jimmy Butler fan. That's like my boy. I love Jimmy. What he did was unbelievably amazing. What their team did, talk about like a team and playing your roles and buying in. But I do think the no fan thing allowed them to have a part of the reason they had the run they had. And then in the finals, I think to your point, it was just the Lakers just had too much. I mean, you could tell, right, in the first minute of Game 6, you were like, oh.
Well, they just looked exhausted.
Yeah.
Even Jimmy was missing free throws, and he's never misses free throws. It just looked like they left it all out to win Game 5, which is really one of the better finals games in recent memory. But Game 6, and JJ called it on Twitter at the time, the Rondo game. Like when Rondo came in and just started hitting shots and kind of controlling the pace, it was like that was it. It was like they had their run, and it kind of crumbled from there.
It was a bounce back game for him because he wasn't great in Game 5. You could tell in Game 6 he wanted to establish a level of aggressiveness in getting to the basket. Ended up hitting a couple threes. Like if he's hitting threes and he's being aggressive, like there's not a whole lot you can do. I mean, you just kind of have to live with the threes. So I wanted to say about the home court stuff in Miami, and we maybe have talked about this briefly on the podcast, but winning the East without having to go to, let's say, Boston, or without having to go to potentially a Toronto, or without having to face Milwaukee, who had home court throughout the playoffs, I think that certainly was to the Heat's advantage. I don't know, and this is just, I'm being honest, I think in the LeBron years during the playoffs, because I got to witness that firsthand when I played with Milwaukee, like the Heat fans during the playoffs, they're phenomenal. But by and large, the Celtics fans, the Raptors fans, a Bucks fan, I guess, but specifically Celtics and Raptors are two of the best home courts in the NBA, period. And so they got to avoid that, which I think was huge.
Yeah, I even think of, we were technically the 2 seed against Vegas. And our first 2 games, if you look at the score, we definitely controlled the games, but there were moments in each of those games, particularly in the third quarter, where Vegas came back, took the lead by 1 or 2 points. If we're in Las Vegas, that could easily turn into 10-point lead, and then it's a whole different game. So yeah, that was people were trying to ask me about home court advantage during the regular season, and I was kind of like, nah. I think regular season's different because maybe a team just played 2 out of 3 nights, and then this is happening, and you didn't have time to prepare. But in the playoffs, I mean, to me, it was a huge. It was missing. The fans were missing. They play a role.
So do you think about were you thinking that night? Were you thinking about legacy at all? And I asked this for you also. I mean, it's a similar conversation for LeBron. Just everyone in the media was talking about what it means for him to win in the third city, to win a championship. But for you, we saw the stat right after you won. It was you became the 3rd player in WNBA or NBA history to win titles in 3 different decades. which is crazy. So like take all the UConn out of it. Still, you're one of 3 who've ever done this. Is that something that is in your head at all, or are you kind of just like in the moment?
No, it's not really something I think about. I think, 3-4 years ago, I definitely feel like I had interviews where I'd be like, oh, I want to leave a legacy, whatever. But now I'm at this point where I'm like, they only really ask you that question if you've already done it. Like,
yeah.
People are going to ask you about your legacy because you've probably already done something. So it's kind of, to me, it's already written, it's taken care of. I personally, it's been great. A lot of people have been like putting me and LeBron in like the same picture on Instagram or like putting us together. I do think it's different. Like he had this whole revenge thing. I feel like I'm on borrowed time. I'm like about to be 40. It technically is both of our 17th seasons, but it's actually my 19th. I just was injured 2 of the seasons, semantics. But my point is like, I've almost been in this for 20 years. I'm on borrowed time. Like I literally shouldn't be here. So these last 2 championships, especially this one though, I'm kind of like, cool, like add it to the list, but it wasn't going to make or break me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.